There are over 8 million different species of animals on Earth, and some of them you might have seen, but I bet you didn't know they're actually real. Obviously, there's no way that everybody knows every single animal, but there's certain animals that you think, how on earth didn't I know that was a real thing? Ranging from things that are similar to what you know to things that you couldn't even believe are from Earth. So let's start it off with number 5, the bonobo chimpanzee. Now, everybody knows about regular chimpanzees. The Latin name Pan troglodyte. So if you've ever heard of someone calling someone a troglodyte, this is where it comes from. Anyway, these are the regular chimps. These are the ones that are cute and not so cuddly, but you think that they probably were. The ones that they used to use in circuses all the time, and the ones that you see the horror stories or Joe Rogan going off about how if chimpanzees were everywhere, you'd be in big trouble. It'd be a real problem. Well, there is a second species from the Congo deep in the rainforest that wasn't even known until the 1920s. Now, there's a big difference. These aren't the same chimps at all. This specific species of chimpanzee, they are from a different place, first of all, but second of all, it's a matriarchal society, which means that the women run things. Also, they're much less aggressive than regular chimpanzees. You might not know this, but the troglodyte species of chimpanzee will literally rip other chimpanzees and monkeys apart. If a chimpanzee feels wronged, or an entire group of chimpanzees feels wronged, the troglodyte species will literally rip their limbs off, rip their nether regions off, and rip their eyes out. The bonobos settle things a very different way. Sexually. This is a weird thing, but there are 3 functions of sexuality in this species of chimpanzee. One is favors, so they will literally give out sexual favors in order to get what they want. The females, this is, to the males. Also for confusion of paternity, so they are very promiscuous, let's say, and that the females will breed with or mate with a bunch of the males in the same group, and that way the males don't know whose baby is whose, and they'll just take care of the baby thinking that it might be theirs. In a similar fashion to how dolphins do it. If you didn't know, dolphin females mate with as many males as possible, so the males won't kill the baby because they might be the dad. And the third is just kind of like the way that humans do it for practice, for fun, for funsies. So this is a hypersexual chimpanzee species, which I know that I'm spending a lot of time on this specific subject, but it is one of the things that differentiates them to really any other ape species and what makes them so different than regular chimpanzees. Everything else is pretty similar. They have the similar diets, although they're not gonna just start killing things for fun. They're not gonna eat parts of monkeys that they kill. They are gonna be from the similar habitat, but maybe more lush jungle type environments. They are found in groups. They're never gonna be alone. In similar ways to humans need other humans, these type of chimpanzees need other chimpanzees, just like most ape and monkey species. Highly intelligent, they like to boink a whole bunch, and they're a little bit less aggressive than regular chimpanzees. Number 4, the shoebill. Now, if you've seen this, you might not have known this was a real thing. I get messages all the time on my other channel about reptiles. Hey, I've seen this bird. Is this a real, this is a real thing. You know that chattering they do with their beak? That is the real sound. That is not dubbed, that is not superimposed, and these African birds are basically dinosaurs. It's a 4 to 5 foot bird, so it's gonna stand up and look eye level to, I don't know, most 14-year-olds or me, and their bills are in a similar shape or look to a shoe, which is why they're called that. They're absolutely enormous. These animals are often found alone. Judging by the look, they have that dirty stink eye, and they want nothing else around them unless it's time to breed. These animals are gonna lie almost motionless, standing up, still, staring with that amazing look until they find a fish or a reptile or a small mammal, and then with lightning precision, they will grab that animal and put it down its gullet in one piece. Shoebills almost always build their huge nests on floating vegetation. Often the female will lay 3 eggs, but most of the time only one of the babies from the fledge will live into adulthood. They are vulnerable and they have a lot of habitat loss. Also, people are poaching these things for the pet trade. I don't know who is keeping these as pets. I've never seen this before, but you must be a crazy person. And believe it or not, that bill chattering that they do, this is for mating purposes more than it is to scare anything away. I don't think that would work for me. Number 3, glass frogs. Now you might have seen these, but thought they were gummy bears. Well, that's kind of what they look like. Glass frogs actually have over 150 different species, but the ones you're most likely to look at are the Valerie or granulated, and these ones have bellies that are basically see-through, which is why they're called glass frogs. If you have them in captivity and see them on a glass wall, stuck there like you see most tree frogs, you're going to be able to see their internal organs at least a little bit moving around. Now, each species is different. Some of them have completely opaque bellies, but they're related. Some of them, they look like they're basically see-through. They're very small. They're under 3 inches. That would be a really big one, actually. And you can find them all over Central America. I love the species. I've got to see them in the wild, and they have an interesting form of reproduction called amplexus. Seeing this in the wild was a dream come true. The male will go on the female's back, the male being smaller than the female, and he'll stay there, sometimes for several days. During a rainstorm, they'll find a broad leaf, the female will deposit her eggs on the leaf, and then the male will fertilize them as they come out. They stick to that leaf, and then eventually when they turn into tadpoles after about a week or so, they drop below into a moving body of water. The tadpoles will eventually turn into little froglets, and then frogs, and then it starts all over again. These are nocturnal animals that look super adorable, and they try to lay basically motionless most of the time, not only to combat predation, because they are small and a lot of things eat them, but also they're ambush predators. They'll wait until an insect or small spineless animal will start to walk along, and then they'll shoot their tongue out, which isn't as long as a chameleon, but in similar fashion, and then stick to it, and then put it back in its mouth. Wham bam, Bob's your uncle, they have their self-breakfast. Unfortunately, they are under threat, their population levels of many of the species, because of deforestation and many other factors, including poaching for the pet trade. I have friends who have glass frogs, but all of them were bred in captivity, and if you want to get one too, make sure that you always get one that was bred in captivity. Number 2, and the cutest on the list, Coatamundis. Some people call them coatis or coatis, but at the end of the day, it looks almost like an Afghan hound in the shape and fur texture of a raccoon. Sometimes they're called Central American raccoons, even though they're in parts of South America as far down as Colombia and as far north as New Mexico and Arizona. Coatis are basically trash pandas. They're just like the raccoons that we have in North America. These things look exactly like them, but with a cuter face. Their tails look upright. We've all seen this hilarious video of Coatamundis walking backwards, and it looks like dinosaurs. That's what this animal is called. They're not very big, about the same size as a raccoon, but more slender bodied. Now, these guys are found in forests a lot of the time, but just like raccoons, they're gonna be found in human inhabited areas. For example, if you're in Costa Rica, off to the side of the road where there's a lot of trash, oftentimes you're gonna find coatis there. I've seen Coatamundis all over Costa Rica, and they're almost always where humans used to be, eating their trash. And although they are oftentimes going to be active during the night, they're oftentimes active during the day too, and it would be less scary or intimidating to see them out in the day. That's more normal behavior for them than a raccoon. They like to be in groups, sometimes up to 30, so they're not going to be found alone most of the time, and they do breed once a year, most oftentimes, and have between 2 and 7 babies. And yes, they're just as cute as you think that they are. And number 1, I saved the most incredibly I can't believe that thing is real or even from this planet for last. Leafy Sea Dragons. Otherwise known as Leafies, because Australia just puts a Y at the end of everything and calls it a day. Imagine a seahorse that looks like it's on fire, but the fire is purple underwater. That's kind of what these guys look like. Now, they are color variant, so they don't all look the same, but they are related to seahorses, which is why they look like this, although they have different behavior and different breeding strategies. But they do have that prehensile tail, which helps them grab onto things just like a seahorse does. They look like this because they're trying to blend into their surroundings, and of course, in Australia, they've got big reefs full of coral, and that's what they're going for. And that's where they're from, by the way. They're from parts of Australia, obviously off the coast, in the ocean. They're very slow moving, and they eat small items, crustaceans, plankton, things like that. And although not exactly the same as seahorses, the part that is very similar in their breeding is that the males are responsible for carrying the eggs, which is very unique in the animal kingdom. Unfortunately, they're on their way to being in a vulnerable state. They're near threatened right now, which leads to endangerment. So, of course, one of the coolest animals on the planet that I bet you didn't know was real, and I want you to let me know in the comment section below about an animal that you think maybe I didn't know is real. As always, please hit the like, please hit the subscribe button. I do videos every weekend, so I'll see you in the next one.